My son, Gregory, looked at me across the kitchen table and said, "It's their home now, Mom. You have your own place in the city." Just like that, he handed over the Vineyard estate, my husband Thomas's life's work, our life's work, to his in-laws, as if it were a spare room in a motel. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just smiled. Smiling face with smiling eyes when the moving trucks rolled up, dust swirling around Lillian's parents' bright smiles. They thought they were claiming a new chapter. They didn't know what was waiting. But I did. Oh, I did. The Vineyard wasn't just land. It wasn't just rolling hills or the quaint guest house tucked beneath olive trees. It was our dream, mine and Thomas's. Sunrise over mountains 48 years ago, fresh from his Air Force retirement, we arrived in Napa with a dusty pickup truck, a notebook of ideas, and hearts full of hope. The land was dry, overgrown, crawling with rattlesnakes. No one saw value in it, except us. Thomas would say, "Helen, one day we'll sit on that hill, wine in hand, watching our grandchildren run through the vines." And we did. We absolutely did. Thomas planted every vine himself, row after row, after long days working construction. I painted the cottage with second-hand brushes, sewed curtains from old tablecloths. We built that life with our hands. No architects, no landscapers, just love. 2 hearts every inch held a memory. The oak by the gate where Thomas carved our initials, the cellar door he insisted should creak for character, the swing set where Gregory learned to pump his legs at 5. So when Gregory told me it wasn't mine anymore, I didn't break. Instead, I planned. And you, dear ones, won't see what's coming. After Thomas passed 10 years ago, the Vineyard became my sanctuary. People asked why I didn't sell, why I didn't downsize to a retirement village. But that land was where I felt closest to him. On the porch swing, coffee in hand, morning fog rolling over the hills, I could almost hear his voice whispering about irrigation or pruning schedules. I spent weekends there, sometimes weeks during harvest, hands in the dirt, tending grapes, talking to Thomas. The birds sang, the vines listened, and I was home. Gregory used to visit often, bringing his wife, Lillian, and their kids. At first, it felt like the Vineyard tied us together, like Thomas was still weaving our family into its roots. But things shifted. Gregory's visits dwindled. Phone calls grew curt. Lillian seemed uncomfortable, wrinkling her nose at the vintage furniture, scoffing at the country kitchen. "I saw a feature in Architectural Living," she'd say, forcing a smile. "Imagine what you could do if you tore down that wall." She never met my eyes when she spoke like that. I chalked it up to city life dulling their appreciation for quiet. I told myself Gregory was busy, that families ebb and flow. But I noticed the whispers when I pulled out photo albums, the way Lillian never helped clear the table, how the kids called me Helen instead of Grandma. Still, I loved them. I made excuses, clinging to hope that they cherished the Vineyard, even if they didn't say it. Then came the dinner invitation. Gregory called, voice unusually warm. "Mom, let's have dinner Thursday, just you and me. Lillian's staying with the kids." I was surprised. We hadn't dined alone in years. I wore my nicest blouse, even a spritz of perfume, thinking he might want holiday advice or to reconnect. The restaurant was a trendy San Francisco rooftop spot, all tiny appetizers and smirking waiters. Gregory barely touched his food, fidgeting with his napkin. Finally, he spoke, his tone rehearsed. "Lillian's parents are struggling," he began. "They're retiring. Their lease is ending. They need stability." I nodded. "That's tough. Can I help?" He cleared his throat. "We've decided it's best if they move into the Vineyard. It's perfect for them, Mom. Peaceful, spacious, safe." I stared, the words sinking in like stones. "I'm sorry," he repeated, slower. "The Vineyard will be their retirement home." 48 years of memories, swept away like crumbs. But I didn't cry. I sipped my water and said, If that's your decision, Gregory, then I suppose that's what will happen. He looked confused, then relieved, but I saw something else flicker in his eyes, underestimation. Driving home, San Francisco's lights blurred past, Gregory's words echoing, "It's perfect for them, Mom." As if the vineyard were a rental property. As if I hadn't planted every rose bush, scraped my knees fixing the trellis, or memorized which vines thrived under Thomas's care. He didn't ask, he told me. That night, in my city condo, I sat by the window with an old photo of Thomas, his shirt soaked with sweat and pride, a basket of grapes in hand. "Did you hear him, Thomas?" I whispered. The next morning, an email from Lillian arrived, titled Vineyard Transition Plans. Attached were PDFs, remodel drafts, blueprints, budgets. She planned to demolish the sunroom for an entertainment deck, rip out the herb garden for an outdoor bar, turn the guest house into a Zen retreat, and replace the cellar with a modern tasting room featuring wine innovation stations. Her sign-off was chipper. "Hope this gives you peace of mind knowing the property will be cherished and elevated. Warmly, Lillian." I closed the laptop, my heart pounding. They weren't moving in, they were erasing us. I didn't scream. Instead, I retrieved a shoebox from under my bed, containing an envelope Thomas had pressed into my hands years ago. "If the ground shifts beneath you," he'd said, "bring this to Dietrich Wu." Dietrich, Thomas's lawyer and Air Force buddy, hadn't heard from me since the funeral. I called his office. "Mrs. Barrett," his assistant said, "Mr. Wu can see you today." An hour later, I sat across from his oak desk, the envelope between us. His eyes, sharp despite his age, softened with concern. "What brings you, Helen?" I slid the envelope forward. "Thomas told me to bring this to you. Gregory thinks he can give the vineyard to Lillian's parents." Dietrich opened the envelope, his brows lifting as he read. A faint smile crossed his face. "Mrs. Barrett," he said, "Thomas knew what might happen." He pulled a folder from his cabinet. The estate was held jointly, but 5 years before Thomas passed, he transferred ownership into a revocable trust with a specific clause. He tapped a page. "If anyone outside the Barrett bloodline attempts to claim residency or ownership without your signed consent, the trust activates an automatic freeze. Control reverts to you, the surviving trustee." I blinked. "So Gregory can't give it away?" "Not legally, not even temporarily, without your signature and court approval." He slid another page forward. "There's more. Thomas allocated a reserve account within the trust for maintenance, legal fees, emergencies. With compound interest, it's now $602,416, tax-free, yours to secure the estate." My throat tightened. Thomas, even in death, was protecting me, our home, our legacy. Dietrich leaned forward. "We can activate the trust, notify all parties, secure the property with monitoring systems, and send certified letters. You don't need to fight in court unless you choose to." Tears welled, not from pain, but from awe. "Thomas thought this far ahead," I whispered. "He did," Dietrich said. "He told me, Helen's too kind. Someone might mistake that for weakness, so I'm leaving her armor." I left with a folder bearing my name, clarity in my heart. On my condo balcony, city lights twinkling below, I whispered, "You were right, Thomas." They never saw it coming. Saturday morning, the Carters arrived, expecting a celebration. A moving truck rumbled up the gravel road, dust swirling. Frank and Angela Carter led in their car, Gregory and Lillian behind, the grandkids munching crackers, excited for their new country house. Angela, in crisp white slacks, clutched decorating plans. Frank snapped photos of the vines. Gregory reached for the brass key under the stone frog. It didn't fit. He tried again, then the front door, the cellar. Nothing worked. Then, an alarm. A piercing wail erupted from hidden speakers, red lights flashing along the fence. The grandkids clutched their ears. 2 black SUVs roared up, private security. A guard stepped out, clipboard in hand. This property is under trust protection. Access is restricted. Are any of you named trustees? Frank scoffed. We're moving in. This is our retirement property. The guard was unmoved. You're not on file. Step away from the doors. The sheriff's been contacted. Angela's face reddened. Call your manager. I'm not a squatter. The guard pointed to a sign on the gate. Property protected under Barrett Family Trust. Unauthorized entry is trespassing. Lillian turned to Gregory, stunned. What's going on? He stared at the house, betrayed, then noticed a blinking red camera in the tree above the porch. Angela tried peering into a window, stopped by security. Ma'am, step away. The sheriff arrived, reviewed the trust documents, and addressed the group. You need to leave immediately. This property belongs to someone else. Lillian whispered, She tricked us. Gregory said nothing, but I think he knew. Dietrich called later. It's done, Helen. Handled peacefully, but they learned a humbling lesson. I poured a glass of Thomas's last vintage. Its taste like peace. Wine glass. That evening, my phone rang. Gregory. Mom, why? Security, legal notices, locking us out like criminals. I let silence settle. You tried to give away something that wasn't yours. Don't do this, he pleaded. Lillian's parents are humiliated. They sold furniture, ended their lease. This is a circus. No, I said. You made it one by promising my home. His voice softened, the boy I raised emerging. Mom, I didn't know. Lillian's voice cut through the background, frantic. She owes us. Then Gregory sighed. She's furious. Thinks I lied. Her parents won't speak to us. Our marriage is crumbling. I sat by the window, dusk painting the sky purple. Gregory, you acted like my memories, your father's work, meant nothing. I thought you were done with it, he said. I wanted to make things easier. Not for me, I replied. You didn't think about me. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Mom. Silence taught its lesson. Then, gently, fix this with Lillian, her parents, yourself. Be the man your father raised. The next evening, Gregory appeared at my condo, shoulders slumped, eyes red. Not the confident man from the rooftop, but my boy, unsure if he deserved entry. Come in, I said. We sat with coffee, 2 sugars, splash of cream, like when he was little. I ruined everything, he admitted. I let him sit in it. I didn't think it through, he continued. Lillian pushed, her parents hinted. I thought I could solve their problems with something that didn't cost me. It cost my trust, I said. He flushed. You're kind. I counted on you quietly accepting. Kindness isn't weakness, I replied. Your father knew that. That's why the trust exists. I want to fix this, he said. Where do I start? With Lillian, I answered. Have an honest talk. It's about mutual respect. And I don't hate her parents, but I won't apologize for protecting my home. He nodded. Could you help them another way? Help me find a solution that honors everyone, I said. But the vineyard stays ours. A week later, we hosted dinner at the vineyard. Simple, honest, under the vines. Gregory carried folding chairs. Lillian scanned the home she'd wanted to redesign. Frank and Angela arrived humbled. Thank you for inviting us, Angela said softly. We didn't realize the history. I showed them Thomas's carved initials, the seller's first vintage barrel. Angela softened. Lillian asked about memories, not renovations. By dessert, we laughed, truly laughed. Gregory raised his glass. to Dad, who knew what we needed, and Mom, who showed me grace. With Gregory's help, we found Frank and Angela a cozy cottage nearby, funded partly by the trust. It wasn't grand, but it was theirs. Gregory and Lillian created their own trust for their kids, protecting what matters. Angela now tends my rose bushes on Sundays. Frank fixes gates. The grandkids run through the vines, just as Thomas dreamed. Gregory gifted me a leather-bound photo book, The House That Love Built. Inside, Thomas in work boots, me painting walls, Gregory on the swing. At the back his letter, Dad, I see it now. I'm sorry I forgot. Thanks to Mom and your wisdom, I'm back. I'll carry your legacy with honor. Tears fell, not grief, but peace. We made it, not through anger, but grace and Thomas's foresight. The vineyard thrives, as does our family, rooted in truth, blooming with forgiveness. Seedling. If you're facing family storms, hold on. Protect what matters. Let silence speak. Legacy isn't what you leave, it's what you teach the living to protect. Thank you, Thomas, for everything. Folded hands. Subscribe to Granny's Voice for more stories of love and triumph. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I'll be here, watching the vines grow. Grapes.